Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Yes, my name's Kit Ewiobi-Jones. I'm CEO of Mindweaver. I'm a former Bucks rugby player, and I'm pleased to be able to welcome you all to today's event, Championing Black Athletes. Today, we're welcoming Black student leaders and colleagues and staff from across the university sports sector. We're really happy to have you. We've got over 30 universities present with great representation across the UK. We've got over 20 different sports represented. We've got 32% of people attending from club committees as well, which is fantastic, from club presidents to team captains and chair people. So it's great to see clubs embracing this moment to engage. We're here to champion Black athletes and to understand the experience of some Black people in sport. And we're here to share and listen and learn. But I think on a day when we hear the former Yorkshire cricketer Azim Rafiq call English cricket institutionally racist, and only 4 months after a hideous kind of racist abuse that followed 3 English players missing their penalties in a penalty shootout, is also really important to understand and remember that listening and learning and sharing of experience is kind of only one part of the deal. The second part is that we do something with what we've learned. We take action to do something, and we understand what works well. We replicate the positives, and we really work hard to eradicate the negatives. Over the next hour, we'll hear stories from a range of speakers, including current and hopefully future Olympic athletes, current Buck stars, and from diversity experts and event partners EY. So when we're unpicking stories and I'm trying to understand the experience of our Black students and Black athletes, I think it's a really good opportunity to understand how Bucks and the sector can become more inclusive, more accessible, and also more anti-racist, and to share insights into what changes are needed to ensure that our Black athletes thrive or continue to thrive in the world of sport, as well as enjoy their participation no matter what level they're playing at. We are joined by Team GB's first ever Black Olympic swimmer, Alice Deering, who will kick us off with a keynote. Following that, we have a Q&A session with 3 brilliant student leaders. We've got Amber Gooden, who's the elected sports officer at the University of Nottingham. We've got Waire I'm going to get this right, Obokuwo, is a GB rower and current economics student at Royal Holloway. And we've got Kofi Barton-Byfield, and he's making waves at Exeter University in Bucks Super Rugby. We'll then be joined by Edmund Young from Event Partners EY. So Edmund is a senior associate at EY, and he's responsible for ensuring that they are achieving their diversity and inclusion targets, including aiming to double their proportion of female and Black and minority ethnic talent within the organisation by 2025. So that's just an amazing objective. And then we'll close the event with a panel discussion featuring all of our speakers. So just ahead of time, I want to say a big thank you to everybody for being here tonight and for our speakers. Before we start, just a little bit of housekeeping to highlight. So firstly, the event is being recorded and will be available to view again, so you can share with your friends, colleagues afterwards. The event will last for 1 hour. The last 15 minutes will be the panel discussion I mentioned. The Q&A function is available. Would encourage you to use that, ask questions throughout the session, and we'll make sure we get our panelists to answer those at the end. Please do share any insights that you learned from today on social. So our handle is @BucksSport on all social platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and please use the hashtag championing Black athletes. I think that is all of the housekeeping. Before we start, actually, we want to hear from you to just and make sure that everyone can get over the initial anxiety of using the chat function. So it would be fantastic if you could all write in the chat function one thing that you're looking forward to learning from today's event. And I will seamlessly move us into session 1 while people are doing that. So to get underway, our first speaker, very exciting, Alice Deering. Fresh from competing at the 2020 Olympic Games, Alice was Team GB's first ever Black Olympic swimmer. It's incredible. Competing in a predominantly white sport, Alice uses her voice to make a positive impact, aiming to be the voice of diversity within swimming. And I'm really delighted to invite you to the screen.
Hi, thank you for that, Kit. That was really, really nice opening. Just going to share my screen for my presentation. Cool. I hope that is seen by everybody. Cool. Okay. So yeah, like Kit said, I'm a Team GB swimmer. I'll get into my story. So I first started learning to swim when I was about 5 or 6 years old, and I moved into competitive swimming when I was 9 years old. And I kind of slowly started to realize that there weren't a lot of people who looked like me, who looked like my mum, who looked like my brother. And we just kind of went through it like blissfully unaware. I'm from Birmingham originally, so it was never really a big deal that there weren't a lot of people of colour at swimming, because at school there was like loads of mix of like different people, different backgrounds. So in my mind I never really saw it as an issue. Yeah, I'm currently 24 years old. I'm based in Loughborough, based at the Loughborough University swimming programme. I swim and train with Loughborough University, and I've literally just completed my master's in social media and political communication. I get my result for my dissertation on Friday, which is being met with excitement and serious dread. So like, have your fingers crossed for me. And yeah, I swam at the Olympics in the marathon event. I was really disappointed with my result. I'm not going to lie, it's still quite a sore spot for me. But like, it's still just to be able to turn up and compete for Team GB at the Olympics is it's like a lifelong dream that I never really thought possible. So I'm still just trying to get over that as well. And I am a massive video game fan. I just thought I'd put that in there to give a bit more context to who I am, because I think quite often athletes can come across as, or feel like, they're very one-dimensional people. You know, I do my sport and I do education, but I like to add in like a little bit something else to give context to who I am. So yeah, I gave it like a little warm-up to race and swimming before, with my background and my story, and yeah, just delving into that more, like realizing that not a lot of Black people were or are in swimming. It came in like spotted parts throughout my life and throughout my career. Like I said, you know, we never really noticed it from Birmingham, really culturally diverse. But there were little things that parents would say to my mum, that swimmers would say to me, and they kind of add up and kind of begin to escalate, where you get to a stage where I was about 16 or 17 years old and realised it was actually a serious issue. So I found that I was quite blissfully unaware of it throughout that whole time, and quite protected in a bubble from these issues that Black people do face in swimming. And it's like kind of having that lens like taken away from me now, and being able to understand the context of what some people were saying to me has made a lot more sense. So for example, people would approach my mum and say, we didn't expect Alice Deering to look like that. And me and my mum always thought because I was small. And, you know, I was like a 9-year-old girl. I think I was probably about 4 foot, if that. I was very little. And we always thought it was because I was quite small for my age. But then I got older and I kind of started putting 2 and 2 together. And, you know, my mum would be the only black person like at the competition. She'd be the only Black parent. And they were approaching my Black mother, saying that they didn't expect me to look like that. And it's kind of like, it could be because I was small, but then it also could be because I have quite a white sounding name. And then they're approaching my Black mother, assuming that I look a certain way. So there's kind of a lot wrapped up in that. And it's kind of understanding that it might have been from one thing, but it might have been from another. And I think that's the difficult thing that we face as Black people is, you know, you don't want something to be loaded towards your race, but you have to understand that sometimes that is the case. And that is the case in swimming sometimes. There are issues faced which Black people don't don't get into swimming because of these issues. You know, I think a lot of people, or I feel like a lot of people know this, but then I didn't know this when I was growing up. So yeah, it's the stereotypes that exist, you know, dense bones, that we can't float, that like we literally sink when we get in the water. And these are all things which Black people have kind of been told through, I honestly don't know where it comes from, but like whispers of it, that, you know, you shouldn't swim because you're Black, you can't float. And it becomes a serious issue where someone doesn't learn to swim, they don't take their children to learn to swim, and then their children's children don't learn to swim, and it ends up being quite a generational effect. And, you know, swimming is a life skill. I'll get onto that in like a couple minutes, and how important swimming is, and why I'm like trying to raise these issues and make people aware that Black people have ended up in this position where 98% of Black adults in England don't swim, 80% of Black children don't swim. And it's quite terrifying, to be honest, because it is a life skill. It could potentially save your life. Another major one, which I think affects a lot of Black women, and it's affected me, to be honest, is the chlorine damage to hair and skin. I have learned to manage my hair really well. Like, it's really happy and it's really healthy. But I know a lot of Black people and white people, you know, everybody can be put off by the chlorine in the water and the effort that you have to go through to protect your hair and to manage it afterwards. So it was like an issue that just kind of didn't have a resolution, because like when I was growing up, there were no swimming caps available for people with like larger hair. You know, swimming caps came in one size and you work to fit your hair into that hat regardless. And having that opportunity to like find a market, find people who are cut out from swimming because of this barrier, which is just a nonsense barrier when you really think about it, was really exciting. So I'm actually working with a brand called Soul Cap, and I don't know if anybody knows, but it went viral. I think it was like in June, because it was announced, or it came out, that FINA, the global governing body for swimming, hadn't approved Soul Cap's caps for use at international competitions. And this was like obviously a really big deal, because it's just ignorance and blindness on FINA's behalf of what the cap is used for. And they claimed they didn't, they claimed that the cap didn't follow the form of the head. And, you know, that the cap is basically just a normal swimming cap, but with a larger dome at the top, so you can fit more hair in, like my own. And yeah, it was quite like international outrage, absolutely crazy. I had a lot of media requests because I'm an ambassador for Soul Cap, and, you know, people asking me what I thought on it. And honestly, for me, this I had to take a step back from. This wasn't my place to be putting my voice into it. I didn't feel the decision by FINA for me was an issue, not for me, because I wasn't going to wear the cap. I was going to wear my standard swimming cap, because that's what I've learned to deal with over the past few years. The issue is for little boys, little girls who wear Soul Cap, who wear a different style of cap, and look up at the top of the sport and think, oh, okay, like they haven't allowed it. This isn't for me. This isn't my sport. They don't want me in this. And, you know, I dealt with issues like that when I was younger, but like I said, I was very protected from it. I was in a bubble, just kind of like something would happen, I would forget about it the day later. But an issue like this is, like, rightly so, was global attention, and to have it potentially damaging the sport was my major issue with it. So I like to think it's getting resolved. I think it's getting resolved, I hope. But yeah, if anyone was wondering about that, that's kind of where I stood with that. Really upset, but I'm very optimistic that the future is brighter than those stories that went out. Yeah, another one, like kind of linked to the bone density, is acrophobia. You know, that fear of I can't swim, so I'm not going near water, is something that we found affects a lot of Black people, and it, like I said, a lot of white people, anybody. Acrophobia can occur with anybody. So yeah, I'll get on to the Black Swimming Association in a second. Yeah, like I said, a generational issue. If you don't take your children to learn to swim, they might not take their children to learn to swim. It's potentially a knock-on effect. And then, yeah, this racism of Black people in swimming goes back decades, and we're really hoping that we can like stamp it out and just have it be that in the future people kind of look back and think, oh, like, why didn't Black people swim? That's such a stupid notion. Hopefully something like that. Personally, for me, this was a gradual realization, kind of as I've alluded to. It wasn't like I was super aware of this from the moment I set foot in a swimming pool. It was over the years, it was constant, like little things that would remind me of, oh, there aren't actually a lot of people who look like you. And when I did encounter racism, I'd discuss it with my mum, and then we'd brush it off and leave it. Like, we very much didn't want anything to get in the way of my personal success and my career and my potential, because, you know, you only get, like, as an athlete, you don't get many opportunities. It's sadly a very short career. You know, most people finish by the time they're 30, which is super young. So like, life's too short to be dwelling on such negative energy, especially racism, because it's a horrible, horrible thing. And to give it weight in your life, I always found was quite detrimental. So like I said, that bubble, that protection was so important to me. And I do respect not everybody has that opportunity. From the other people that I spoke to in swimming who have faced racism, like, it has affected them. And it's really sad. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. It was really sad to know that that's happening to people, and that it's kind of still going on, and that it's still an issue. So yeah, I reached the point 2 years ago where I finally decided that I felt ready and mature enough to have these conversations, to be able to speak about this in a way that people can hopefully reflect on, and you know, have conversations with, like, their own people, and start to learn why these issues are happening, and educate as well. So action, which is always like a nice thing to be able to speak about. You know, there are people who want to make this change. I've helped co-found the Black Swimming Association. They're the 4 co-founders there. Absolutely amazing people. We all come from different backgrounds in swimming. Ed, for example, was only learning to swim about 2 years ago when we first spoke to him, first met him. And myself and Serena are both, or Serena is a former elite athlete and I'm an elite athlete. And Danielle Obey helped, well, no, not helped. Danielle Obey founded her own company for hair protection in the water, which, you know, we all got different takes on swimming. It's really opened my eyes to the fact that it's much broader than the elite world that I kind of got myself wrapped up in. You know, swimming 25 meters is as important as winning an Olympic gold medal, and like, because they're both personal journeys to that person. So someone's just learned to swim 25 meters and that's a great achievement for them. That's great. Someone's won an Olympic gold medal, that's a great achievement for them, and that's great too. I think it's really important to understand that everybody's journey with water is different, and each can have their own positive outcome from it. So yeah, we're working with key partners and key leaders in the aquatic sector. Our most major one at the moment is the RLNI. And there is research going ahead into, firstly, why Black people don't swim. So there's issues that I spoke about before. We're aware they're happening, but we don't know which ones are the most heavily weighted, or which ones we need to focus on first, because that's the major cause. So we're looking into that first. And then secondly, we're looking to disprove the whole bone density, Black people can't float, because it is a widely believed, like, myth. I'm going to call it a myth, and 98% certain that it's not true. But, you know, really help to get that, like, hard evidence of, you know, this is completely false. There are loads of amazing Black swimmers, and yeah, like, there's no reason that Black people can't float in water. Hopefully we'll get that result. Why I'm doing this, I guess, because, you know, I could have quite happily just kept swimming. You know, no one really brought attention to the fact that I was the only Black swimmer on the British team and the first Black woman to make the Olympics in swimming. No one brought attention to that. I kind of brought that on myself, and then it escalated, to my surprise. But, you know, I kind of got to the point where I was like, I want to hopefully give something back to swimming. And like give something back to the communities which have helped support me and raised me. So and I didn't want to just skate through and just kind of finish my career without having those opportunities and using my voice for something wider. And again, this isn't for everybody, you know, having these discussions isn't easy. It's never easy to talk about race. It can be quite heavy and quite draining, you know, some of the interviews I've had, some of the discussions I've had, but yeah, I hopefully think I'm leaving the world in a better place than I found it, and leaving swimming in a better place than I found it. And yeah, I'm just trusting that in the future, my words, my actions will hopefully impact somebody's life in a positive way. But yeah. And briefly, what swimming has given me, amazing perspective on the world. You know, I talk about these opportunities that swimming and sport can give people, and I'm really fortunate to have found myself in a position to be able to have a discussion like this, to have traveled the world, to have gone to the Olympics. And I really don't want people to miss out on those opportunities just because they think swimming isn't for them. It's such a sad way of like thinking about the sport of swimming. You know, I keep talking about swimming, but I absolutely love it. It's given me the most amazing life, the most amazing opportunities. And even if those opportunities are from, you know, going to the Olympics, like I said, or from swimming in a pool on holiday, or going in the sea for a little bit on holiday, they're both like cool things to do. You know, they'll both make somebody happy. So I just don't want people to miss out because they think it's not for them. And finally, I always like to end on a little like just like my advice, and I like to stress the importance of support and self-care. You know, I have the most amazing support network. My mum is incredible. My agent, my boyfriend, you know, I've got so many people who like are looking out for me. This picture is from the Olympics, as you can probably guess, and we're all representing different nations, and we're all Loughborough swimmers. And I've absolutely loved my time as a student. I'm moving into like full-time athlete, which I'm honestly enjoying at the moment. It's quite nice not to study. I'm sorry, that's probably a bit of a flex when people are like going through it in the first semester. So sorry if you're thinking, oh my God, but yeah, I've done my 6 years. I've enjoyed it. It's been good. But yeah, in that, please find time to rest. Like, it's hard being an athlete or even just a student, or, you know, having both of them mixed together. And like, don't feel bad for like loving yourself and, you know, watching Netflix, or for me, it's playing video games or going and seeing friends, whatever you need to do. Like, make sure you're happy, because that is so important. Like, you don't want to like skate through life and just not have that, like those points of like light that you can turn to. So yeah, and surround yourself with people who care about you and want to see the best in you. It's really easy to fall into a place where like you might be with frenemies or whatever, like that negative energy. Like, avoid that as much as possible, and it's easier said than done. But there are loads of people out there who want to love you and support you and see you be your best self. So I'd say go and find them. And yeah, if there are any questions, put them in the Q&A or the chat. And yeah, hopefully we can have a discussion at the end. And thank you so much for listening. Sorry if it was like really rambly and I'm speaking really fast. There's just so much I want to get out. So yeah, I hope it's all made sense. And yeah, if there's any questions, just drop them. Thank you.
Wow.
Oh.
I'm sorry, that was really, really good. It was so interesting. Thank you, first of all, for being so open and so vulnerable, because it is hard to get out there and talk about that. So that kind of really blew me away. I was supposed to pick out key points, but I've just been scribbling all over my paper. But you know, I think, you know, the things around your realization about what was racially tinged and what wasn't, I think was really interesting, and probably something that a lot of people can recognize as you start to move through and you start to hear things, you're like, oh, that's not what I thought it was. And, you know, I really it could be this or it could be that really resonated with me, as well as, I think, and again, sport is tinged with this, that kind of pseudoscience of, you know, you're quick because of this, or you can't swim because of that, you know, and those sorts of things that really pervade and can either make some Black people position themselves in a certain way. You know, maybe I am only meant to be a runner. Maybe I'm not meant to be the tactician in this team. You know, that kind of thing, which I find really interesting. And I mean, as someone who can't swim, you know, that stat around the 98% of adults was really quite scary. Black adults, I guess, is what we were talking about here. Is really quite scary, as you say, because it's a life skill. There's just so much there, and I'm just grateful to you for bringing it all up. By the way, if I look over there, it's because I've got two screens. I got to remember to look over here. But yeah, I'm really grateful to you for that. It's yeah, that was amazing. So I'm really amped up now for the rest of it, but thank you again, Alice. I'm really looking forward to yeah, just to bringing you back. So thank you, and also good luck for your competing this weekend, aren't you? I think at the
yeah, sorry, I should mention that. Yeah, I'm competing at Bucks this weekend, so it's a Bucks week for me, which is really exciting.
So good luck for that, and also for the Masters. So you're an incredible human being, right? So session, our second session, I'm very excited about. So we've got 3 student leaders who are coming to share with us today. Thank you so much. So we're being joined by Amber Gooden, so former University of Nottingham netball president and now elected sports officer. We've also got current GB rower and Royal Holloway student Waire I'm Nigerian, how can I not get this? Obukogwo, and University of Exeter Bucks Super Rugby star Kofi Barton-Byfield. So thank you for joining us. I'm just going to kind of dive straight in. Actually, quite a lot of what Alice was talking about really feeds into my first question, really, which is about kind of for you folks, you know, what does it mean to be Black in sport? We often talk about, you know, not wanting to focus on race because it's awkward and it's challenging, but you know, it is a thing. So what does it mean for you to be Black in sport? What has it been like, and what have you had to do to navigate those spaces? I'm gonna come to Amber, I think.
Hi. Yeah, I think for me, so my sporting background is netball, and I grew up in a very white-based area, and I think netball can be very white-based sport as well. So I think for me, it definitely meant like quite sticking out of the crowd quite a lot, like definitely looking different than all of my teammates and things like that. I think it meant standing out a lot, and I think it puts pressure on you to stand out in a good way and make sure that you're performing well and everything like that, because from a team of like completely white people, everyone's going to notice the one black girl. So making sure that you're performing well, I would definitely say, which puts a lot of pressure, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah, I suppose if you're the one Black person, there's also the pressure to conform to type. So, you know, how can you be the slow Black person? That doesn't make sense. You know, how can you be the Black person who's not strong? Like, that doesn't make sense. So there is a lot of kind of pressure that we put on top of ourselves to conform to a stereotype, which also isn't accurate. I don't know what you think about that kind of thing, Kofi.
Yeah, I think not only with performance, but like on and off pitch, especially, because at least for me, I found there's a definite stereotype of if you're kind of good on pitch, then everything else off pitch is kind of, you can be disregarded. So for me, that was like wanting to prove a point that I like can be strong in other areas.
What do you mean? Like, what kind of other areas?
So like particularly academic, because I think that was one spot that like was definitely questioned. And like I'm by no means an academic, but definitely just showing that I can be intelligent in my areas.
Yeah, do you mean that kind of assumption that gets made that if you're the athlete, that's it, that's all that you are?
Yeah, definitely. And like I think a lot of it can stem from especially that kind of American culture of scholarships, because I mean, I was on a scholarship to my school, and yeah, there's a definite stigma around just being there at that school for rugby and nothing else.
Yeah. And I mean, that kind of leads into kind of that next part, and I'll bring Vara into this as well. But when we think about that talent versus the tokenism bit, because actually sometimes, you know, yeah, you might be the quickest person on the team, you might be the strongest person, but you're also the only Black person. So sometimes your talent and your achievement gets overlooked because of that. I don't know kind of how you found that, Kofi.
Yeah, like, I suppose for my school, I was the definite, I'd say a definite poster boy in that sense. And it's very tough because, like, without kind of blowing my own horn, I could confidently say I was the best in my sport in that place, and then to be used as a poster, it's totally reasonable. But then it can take away all that achievement when I'm the only Black person on that team. And it just feels like I'm filling a void, a representation kind of quota.
Yeah. And like diminishing your hard work as well.
Yeah, completely.
And Vara, what about you? Because obviously, I mean, you know, black and rowing discuss, you know, I mean, that's must be fairly similar to swimming, or I mean, I really do see rowing as a white sport. So how did you find it?
Very similar to Kofi in terms of like being at the top of your sport can kind of skew the perception of, okay, are they promoting me because I'm Black or because I'm good? And then you kind of have this mild identity crisis. And then, yeah, I was saying earlier to Alice, like, rowing's not only a white sport, it's a white male sport. So there is such a huge gap between the female side. And it feels like everyone's just trying to get to grips with the simplest things, like what are the standards. And yeah, the rowing Olympics on the female side, GB went and got quite a few fourth places, and it was one of those things that if the due diligence had been done prior, we would have known how to build a strong team and so on and so forth. But yeah, I kind of have this double whammy of being a female and a Black person in rowing. So yeah, you feel like you stand out a lot. And then on top of that, standing out because I am performing well is one of those things. I like to think, though, that I'm a trailblazer. So, like, to put a positive spin on it, it's like, I'm a trailblazer. Someone's got to do it. Someone's got to show them how it's done. And I will fully take on that challenge. But in terms of the pressure, I've definitely felt in the past that there is this pressure to uphold, okay, you have to be the best in everything. Like, because with rowing, we have indoor rowing and on the water, and indoor rowing came quite naturally to me because it is definitely more strength-based, whereas on the water, it's more technique-based. And I've not been rowing for very long, so only like 3.5 years. So I had such a long way to catch up. I still have such a long way to catch up. So yeah, people knowing the scores that I'm getting on the indoor rowing machine, and then I show up to a race and I'm like dead last. That was almost shameful for me because I was like, oh, like, I'm the only Black person. I need to uphold these standards at all points. But yeah, it can definitely get overwhelming. And I think the most important part is to remember that before being Black or before being a female, like, I am a human being, and just try and enjoy the journey the most. That's like my take on it. But when I'm up for the challenge, I definitely just tell myself I'm a trailblazer and I'm ready to fight.
Yeah, I think that's somewhat of an understatement. GB rowing Black woman. Yes, you're 100% a trailblazer. Amber, I was thinking about you during that when Vara was just talking, because you're in a situation where not only are you in a kind of probably majority white sport, but you're also in a position of, we've been in a position of leadership within that sport. So you're not just experiencing the challenges yourself, but also looking at how clubs deal with the challenges. How did you find that? How did you kind of engage with those issues?
Yeah, I mean, it is very difficult. I'd say, even in my position now, as sports officer at UON, I am I think the first Black officer at the university, and most of the other people that I meet within my job, with my day-to-day, it's predominantly white people, or not POC people anyway. But yeah, I think it is very difficult. I would echo the things that Rory said, because like it is, you do feel like there's this pressure on you to make sure that you do perform, because you do stand out, and you have to make sure that you're always representing that Black side of things. I would also say, if you're in these positions, take the time to make sure that the people around you can continue to understand these Black positions, so that like so hopefully, you know, when I leave this job in a year's time, and when I left the netball club, that they would, you know, continue to understand and take into consideration the Black view and everything like that. Obviously the pressure and the like effort shouldn't be on us, but you know, if you can do that on the way, I think that's really, really important, so that in the future, you know, people can take on these like considerations and stuff like that without Black people having to step up and be in that space to make sure it happens.
I think that's such an important point. Just I mean, unfortunately, you know, we do, right? We take it on. You know, we launch the initiatives like, you know, Alice has done, or we, you know, become a spokesperson, or we, you know, run for a leadership position like, you know, like you've done, and these things just, you do become the Black representative. But I think actually that point around kind of almost like having an infrastructure in place that kind of outlasts you is really, 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 really important. And any one of you can jump in on this one, because the question of role models comes up a lot, right? And all of you will at some point have been told that you're a role model, and this is fantastic, and that is, by the way, for you to have that position. But who were yours? So, you know, particularly, I guess, if we're talking about rowing or swimming, where you know, we're kind of lacking those role models, or even netball, you know, who were your role models that you were looking up to? And if you didn't have any, what did you have to do to kind of fill that void? Anybody?
I'm just gonna start, because that part, there's no there's no role models. There's no, at least to my awareness, on the Great British team, there's been no fully Black female that has been on the team, gone to the Olympics to represent. So I had to sort of like patch together my role model. And yeah, the first person that comes to my head is Serena Williams. Her being a strong Black woman really helped me with consolidating my confidence in the Black community. At least let me speak from my own experience. Like, I know from a Nigerian background, being muscular, and then on top of that, I'm quite tall, so I'm 5'11", it was deemed as like unladylike and unfeminine. But I'm a very feminine person. Like, I love to get my nails done, love to do my hair, all of that. So having comments from family members being like, oh, like, you look like a man, and stuff like that was so conflicting. But then looking at someone like Serena Williams in all her glory, literally dripping with muscle, and she makes it so beautiful. Like, when she comes onto the court in her amazing outfits with her hair done to the nines, like, that's someone that I can relate to. So that helped me with my character. But in terms of like sports and like being a Black rower, I'm yet to find that inspiration. But yeah.
Yeah, I realized actually as soon as you started speaking, I was like, this is gonna be a quick one, isn't it? Nobody. But actually what you were saying about Serena Williams is, I think, again, with a lot of, I only speak to myself, but you know, a lot of Black women I know that will resonate with, especially when you think about not just sporting standards, but beauty standards generally. Serena Williams is like the antithesis. But for me, when I was kind of, nowhere near as, I wouldn't consider myself an athlete, by the way, but when I was playing rugby and I realized that my thighs were getting bigger, that was a real kind of source of kind of anxiety and stress, because it doesn't lead you to kind of feel sensual or demure or any of those things that we've been, taught to kind of uphold. And as you say, you get Serena Williams and you're like, wow, she is beautiful, she is stunning, she's this Amazonian, and actually that is something that I can aspire to and I can look to and feel powerful and beautiful. It's a really, really interesting thing. I don't know about any netball.
We had a few. I would definitely echo Serena Williams, just in general. I mean, that woman is a goddess, like we can all agree that. But I think I think in netball, I did have a few growing up, which was really good. The main one I would say is Pamela Cookie. She was captain of the England team in her time, and she was goal attack, and she was one of the only other Black people you saw on court. And her making her captain of England and everything like that was absolutely incredible. And I remember an experience where I actually got to meet her. The photos are awful because it's just me crying my eyes out managing to meet her as a kid, but that was definitely a brilliant experience to have like some people to look up to, and that was really, really good.
Kofi, how was your experience with that, with role models and things?
I think I've been quite fortunate in that sense, especially with rugby and the position I play. I play wing or fullback, and there's I suppose an overarching amount of Black rugby players play that position.
A couple of blacks, haven't we?
So so I've definitely had a good few role models growing up. Like when I was younger, Anthony Watson, British and Irish Lion, England rugby player, was a huge role model for me. Just his professionalism and how he plays. But I suppose as I've grown up, I found Paolo Dogu, who's a younger player, but he speaks out on a lot of issues surrounding Black culture entering into rugby. And I found that quite inspiring to listen to.
I think that's also a shift, isn't it? Because I think depending on how far back you go, that's quite challenging for people to do. And I think it was maybe Alice that was talking about kind of not kind of stepping into that space straight away, like wanting to kind of take your time, but also it's really hard once you put your head above the parapet, as you say, as I think you were saying, Alice, that it all comes to you then. So actually to start seeing that shift towards people taking that mantle, I personally think that creates a kind of a completely new generation of role models who are able to kind of not just be about the sport, but also be about what existing in that sport is, and people can learn from that too, which I think is really interesting. But one of the things I'm not, someone's going to have to tell me how much time we have left, because I'll happily just keep talking with everyone, so someone's going to have to shut me up. But what I wanted to know from you folks is what you think that either directors of sport or senior people within kind of the university establishment should understand or need to understand about your experience. I don't feel like you have to speak on behalf of all Black people, but your experience certainly within the university sporting structure, and what they should be thinking about that might help. I can see Amber reaching to unmute.
Yeah, I got tangled in my cord, but I think definitely they should just be looking to include the Black perspective and everything. I think like one of the main things that I flagged when I became sports officer, one of the first things we did is have we built like a manual, to give out a welcome about sports and everything like that. And I literally took it and I was like, this is just full of white people playing sports. I was like, this is not going to like, if I looked at that, I would not want to play sport at the university. And it's small things like that, and making sure that you have that kind of awareness of the situation and you're advertising more of that and everything like that. I mean, that is what I try and do in my role, is make sure to bring that perspective into everything that we do, because I do meet with directors of sport and stuff like that quite often. I think it would be really good as well to see more Black officers, Black sports officers, Black people in these leadership roles within the HE structure, because I am yet to meet, I think I've met one throughout the throughout the whole of the UK, and I'm yet to meet others in HE or in university structures in my institution and things like that. So putting yourself up for these leadership positions would be also really great. And then also for them to just take in the Black perspective, and making sure that they're doing that.
Thank you very much. Does anyone, I've been told that this is my last question. So does anyone else kind of want to kind of jump in and give some advice, let's say, to people in the kind of university structure about what they can do or things that they should consider?
Yeah, I wanted to add that it's important for people higher up to take initiative. At the end of the day, as an athlete, I'm here to perform, and white counterparts get the opportunity to be exclusively an athlete. So having to educate people, whilst I'm happy to do it, but if I'm at a race, if I have a hard training session, I'm going to be laser focused on doing what I do best, which is performing. So it would be a lot easier for Black athletes to excel and to feel comfortable if most of that burden is taken away and the initiative is taken by the people higher up. I mean, I know that a support system, their job is to enable us to perform. Like, I know with my coach in particular, like, she is really well read up, and allows me to just do what I do best. And that's all that I could ask for, really.
I think that's really, really important, actually, that first of all, it's not just on Black people, number one, but also it's not just on the students themselves to say, right, this is my cause, can you help me with that? It's also for the establishment to say, this is important to us, we're going to do something to make sure that the support is in place and the infrastructure is there. Kofi, do you want to close us out?
Yeah, I think one thing I'd say is actually reaching out into those kind of pockets of communities, because especially like with where most universities within rugby's a very white dominated sport. It's dominated by the private schools, and coming through to university, if you don't play rugby or come in wanting to play rugby, the reach out can be quite tough, because there's a huge pool of talent that is often just kind of left out. So I think actually really reaching out to them, and it could be good, really positive.
Thank you very much. That's amazing. And I really actually could have gone on. So thanks, Georgie, for politely telling me to shift. But I really, really appreciate everything that you've all said. And I will be bringing you back to join us for the Q&A panel. So I'll be able to tap into some things that we didn't quite get to cover just now. So our final keynote is Edmund Young. So I'm really interested to hear lots about this. So Edmund is a senior associate at our event partners EY, and he works closely with the wider EY team to ensure that they are hiring a diverse and inclusive workforce. EY are an award-winning employer for diversity and inclusion, and they make sure that they ensure that D&I is at the centre of everything that they do, particularly around their recruitment strategy. They're really passionate about providing opportunities, employment opportunities for Black student athletes. So so much so, if you think you are a Bucks athlete, volunteer, coach, or an officiate in university sport, you can be fast-tracked through their process to increase your chances in securing a role at one of the best employers in the UK. We've had a lot of questions submitted before the event, specifically for Edmund and EY. So I'm really delighted to welcome Edmund to the screen.
Hi, thanks for having me, and it's a real pleasure to be here. I just want to, before I start the talk, show a video that it was a campaign that some of our staff put together, which is quite powerful. So I'm just going to share my screen so that everyone sort of viewed that as well. Then I'll get straight into it.
I and my black colleagues matter. Nothing less is true. The EY purpose is to build a better working world, but can we build it fairly for both me and you? Recent times, seeing people's real lives showing us the distance from our goal of equal opportunities. Now we can undo the knots tying our minds and open up fair dues to our black communities. We're pausing longer to see your value and pronounce what's in the name, instead of grouping us with other races filed for convenience under BAME. I and my black colleagues matter. Do you see and hear me? Real allies are the ones who act, like those at EY training in race fluency. If the tables were turned, I would do so willingly, just like I've already learnt about white history. But where our futures are concerned, there can be no flexibility. We'll respect those who stepped up and earned their share of the responsibility. I and my black colleagues matter, so I'm asking others to run a mile in my shoes, to be the change we want in place for our youth, level the playing field for blossoming black talent, utilise the full range of the solo black person on the UK executive crew. I'm a qualified professional, and in this discussion I choose to be a key player. So reminding people their colleague's name is Adankwa, not Ada. That's something I don't mind. It might be hard to remember at first, but all names deserve the time. This is my heritage, my black British, my identity. A second gen who aced university, the first in my family. I want a working world where my equals look me in the eye before checking out my hair, where I don't have to second guess people's perspectives. I want our talking loud to mean the same thing, not mine being labelled aggressive. Yes, mathematical minds can live under cornrows and afros. Interview panels reflect. This is about people seeing people, adult professionals acting with respect. EY UK is not there yet, but it is changing. Action is happening, things are reframing, and we're at the centre of such a necessary shift, and we swear to drive home the questions on our lips, because I and my black colleagues matter. We do deserve better.
Really, really powerful stuff there, and really sort of proud of the work some of the members of the sort of team done. So I'm just going to sort of share my screen here. So what I'm going to do is just talk a bit about myself, my research on diversity, and what we've been doing at EY, and some advice on anyone who wants to potentially join EY in the future. Shameless plug. So who am I? I'm a senior associate at EY Talent and Attraction team. So I've been at EY for just over 3 months now, so not long at all. When I first joined EY, I was really passionate about diversity, specifically sort of black talent, is what I've done in previous roles, is what I did when I focused on my master's 2 years ago. I'm a huge music fan, so I play the piano. I studied classical and jazz piano sort of growing up as well, which was great, and I could just listen to it all day as well. And apart from that, obviously being a huge DNI enthusiast as well, and sort of championing that across everywhere I go as well. So a bit about some of my research. Now, growing up, I wasn't born in the UK, I was born in Ghana. I came into the UK when I was about 8 years old. And growing up, you would sort of hear all of these things about, oh, sorry, slides moving, not at my pace there. So let's get that. So growing up, I would hear things such as, you know, we need to get there. I think, cool. I'll just leave it here. So growing up, we used to sort of hear things such as, you need to make it, you need to get to the top, you know, you need to sort of work twice as hard as your sort of white counterparts. And I was wondering, you know, why do I have to work twice as hard as my white counterparts? You know, are there no black people working twice as hard? Why do I have to sort of get to the top? You know, are there no black people at the top? Why is this all sort of down on me? And then it stuck with me for quite some time. And I wanted to sort of just find out, you know, what was sort of happening, you know, why we were sort of being told these sorts of things, and what was specifically going on within the conversation and the narrative there as well. So I went off to study a master's in human resources management and wanted to focus on Black talent and diversity and selection systems there, to really sort of find out what was going on and to sort of find out what the research was saying as well. So the view was that if we want to sort of increase inclusivity, we need to start asking, you know, what support is being given to our Black colleagues within the workforce as well. What would honestly they say about how they feel and their aspirations are at work as well? And addressing those questions is how we sort of start encouraging attraction and retention as well within the workplace. And there's also a need sort of for targeted efforts as well in this space. There's often this imbalance that often needs to be addressed quite a lot of times, because it's there in the data. If we imagine in a meritocratic world where we look at the FTSE 100, where we barely have a lack of or none Black CEOs, CFOs, or chairs, you hear sort of people often saying that there is no talent out there, that there is no Black talent out there that we can put in these positions of leadership, which is simply not true. And in that case, we have to be honest about, you know, the presence of bias and do something about that. You know, if it's done correctly, we can all sort of benefit from that as well. And it's extremely important for all kinds of people to really understand that they're welcome to positions of visibility, leadership, and responsibility, because, you know, you often hear phrases like Black excellence, and whilst I'm a big fan of that phrase as well, you know, but to what extent of, you know, is Black excellence? Because sometimes it can become so damaging where we have to meet these societal expectations where, you know, if I'm not a Black person and I'm not, you know, drowning in excellency, I'm not showing that I'm at the top of my league, then I'm going to be seen as a failure. And that reflects down on different generations because we have no representation or a lack of representation. And therefore we create these sort of phrases, you know, to make sure that we can really break those barriers as well, which can sometimes be damaging in a very unhealthy way to ourselves when we try and sort of chase our dreams and aspirations as well. And one of the points that I argued in my project was that we have to look at some of our leaders as well, because, you know, they must lead by example and welcome difference. It's really important for them to sort of build trust and connections with their fellow sort of Black colleagues as well. And if we look at leaders, they set the tone for the culture, and, you know, what you choose to show up for really sort of conveys a message as well. And, you know, to add on to that, you know, we have to look at these leaders and look at that they need to convey the messages that are there, but need to be prepared to operate in a world where, you know, employees are increasingly looking at how they are being treated as human beings first, as is mentioned earlier as well, which is really, really important in that slide as well. So just some of the things that I'm really sort of proud to be working on at EY, which is great. So let me just try and see if I can here. So at EY, we've got something called the Discover EY Black Heritage and Business Program, which I'm really excited about to be working on as project lead there. It's such a fantastic program, and it's something that we're currently putting together at the moment, which is going to be great, which is going to be something that we really envision to being at the start of change. We're not there yet, as the video said, we are not there yet, but we are having those conversations with our colleagues, with our sort of our Black peers, and looking at what we can do to level sort of the playing field as well. And we want to do that through sort of programs such as this, which would be available for those in sort of first year university, and want to sort of gain an insight into all the different sort of service lines that we have as well. And, you know, it's important to really sort of shun that at this stage, you know, it's about creating true equality and leveling that sort of playing field as well, and addressing, you know, race at EY. And it's just not just about race as well, but it's about, you know, how do we sort of champion more female talent, how do we champion more LGBTQ plus talent as well, and become true allies of these communities as well, which is one of the most important things that sort of I would address there as well. Another sort of initiative, or one of the initiatives which I'm really sort of proud to be working on at EY is really looking at our talent processes. You know, where are we losing our Black talent? How are we visible to Black talent? And one of these is in the stats, you know, statistically, Black applicants tend to fail when they or not pass to the extent when they get to doing sort of tests such as the numerical reasoning test, and not just at EY, but, you know, across various companies as well. So we've introduced something called the V platform to give that extra help and level that playing field, as mentioned earlier, to make sure that we can really foster, you know, equality, and we can sort of champion those who are doing well based on merit, and not just, oh, let's promote that person because he's Black and it will look good for our stats as well. So we want to really make sure that we can create that visibility there as well for those who are sort of trying to break through within that particular sort of service line or industry that they want to get into as well. So these are just two of many things that we're working on, and I'm hoping that, you know, we can really be at a stage you know, in a couple of years' time, where we can say we've done X amount of things and this is what we've done. And on top of that, we are sort of also making our ethnicity pay gap reports available as well, which is fantastic. It's good to sort of see that raw side and really have those uncomfortable conversations as well when looking at championing Black talent as well. So to round off, again, shameless plug, we are open for applications. This is not just for anyone applying at EYF, but for applying at anywhere, any other sort of company as well. Normally we sort of call this advice, but I like to deem it as reflections when making applications to companies as well. You've got to know who your audience is, you know, especially the company, what are they doing? You know, looking at things that align with them, and also looking at your strengths, and if your strengths are those which will enable you to do the job well. But essentially finding out your strengths. You know, we like to speak of, you know, known and unknown strengths, and unknown strengths are not always visible as well. So it's important to look at those, especially from the candidate's perspective and the point of view as well. And looking at the research as well, we have tons of research about what we're doing in terms of contributing to sort of climate change, as to race and diversity as well, you know, championing that and looking at those things which will really, really enable you to talk confidently about yourself and what you align with as well. When I was interviewing for EY, I said, I'm interested in working on diversity projects. I have done this. I know that EY wants to achieve these sorts of targets. You know, I think this is what I can contribute, and really sort of selling yourself, because often we like to sell ourselves short because of the lack of representation out there as well. But it's important to know that, you know, imposter syndrome it does come naturally, because sometimes we feel we are not worthy, but, you know, it's by looking and reflecting on ourselves that, you know, we actually, you know, have these skills that can really take us far and can really put us in a position where we are now a Black role model for somebody who can then look up to us. So I think that's quite important as well. And it's something that we're really, really looking at, especially when analyzing our talent systems as well within EY. So I think it's really great that we're sort of looking at these, but more importantly, having those uncomfortable conversations, you know, about, you know, stuff factors such as microaggressions, you know, the loud employee, the angry Black man, and, you know, how these affect different employees as well within the workplace as well, which is what I hope that we can sort of take away and really work and build upon to make sure that we are sort of creating a world that is of equality as well. So just a final for those who want to sort of follow us or find out about some of the work we're doing in terms of race and diversity as well. You can follow some of the links there as well. I am really, really sort of passionate about some of the projects we're working on, and I hope that we can really work with as much people to make sure that we are making sure that Black voices are heard, and that we are making sure that we are creating the right spaces and safe spaces for Black people to champion sort of their talent and make sure that they are being looked at as well. And that's it from myself. So thank you very much for listening to me. Over to you.
Thank you so much. That was really good. That video, I've seen it a few times now. That video sort of gives me goosebumps. There are bits there. I always really enjoy the black nod as well. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but that was my life at Exeter. But I think you pointed out quite a few things that I think don't get said enough, and that's that narrative of Black excellence is incredibly important, because I think there's so much of Black suffering out there, and kind of the fetishization of trauma, but actually that sometimes we have to recognize that for Black people, excellence and like supreme excellence has been the bar of entry, rather than just something that that is kind of a standard that is kind of dished out equally. And I think that kind of being in a place that's assessing that and questioning that is really, really important. There are a lot of little truth bombs you dropped out there, Edmund, but one of them was about like being honest about bias. You said you talked a lot about kind of the research side of things, and looking at your data and really kind of interrogating that. And I think that for people out there listening about how they want to improve things, being honest and interrogating your data is huge. And then obviously leaders leading by example and thinking about what are we going to show up for, because it's easy for us to stand out front and go, I'm with you, I'm an ally. What does showing up actually look like? So thank you. Oh yeah, and creating the right spaces. There was a lot from you, Edmund. Okay, there was a lot. So thank you for that. And again, we'll be kind of all coming together now to sort of bring some of these themes together. So this is the final section of the webinar, our Q&As. We did have quite a few questions submitted before, which was great, so thank you for those. I'm going to pull out some of the key ones that we had before, and actually one of the ones I wanted to start with you on, I think Edmund, is around what has made the biggest difference at EY in terms of the work it's done to support its Black colleagues and employees. And I'm going to give you a follow-up now so you know where I'm going with this. What do you think the HE sector, which has similar challenges to the tech and consulting world, can learn from the approach that EY took?
Yeah, sure, no worries. I guess one of the most important things is not categorizing us in putting us in BAME and just saying Black heritage, Black backgrounds, Black people, and most importantly, sort of having those conversations around sort of succession planning as well. Yes, we've got a new Black apprentice here. What are we going to do to ensure that they are as successful as possible, that they can get to a point of leadership, that they don't have to just keep working at the same level and not being sort of recognized as well, and looking at our processes for making sure that anyone who sort of comes from minority ethnic background or Black background can ensure that they have a great application process as well, but also that they can be sort of cultivated in a way where we look at how we can nurture their talent to make sure that they get to a level of representation for any sort of junior staff who can sort of join them. So I think following on from that, what what the HE sector could do is to look at, employees from sort of the junior level, and not just, those who've been there for 5 years now. Okay, he's been here for 5 years, let's now promote him. But right from the start, how do we look at, this is where we want you to be in about 2 years time, this is where you want to be in about 6 months time, and cultivate that talent, because that's how we're going to stretch that talent pool of, creating that sort of role model and creating those sort of that representation there as well, which is quite important, because if you don't have representation, often it's so hard, because then we fall into the whole imposter syndrome. Am I worthy to get there as well? But if we look at our talent pipelines, there, it's looking at how we can have those honest conversations from the start, and make sure we offer that support right from the beginning of, the careers, right from junior level to the top of executive level as well, which is quite important in that aspect.
Yeah, and I think actually what you're saying there kind of connects really well to what Amber was saying about kind of having that structure in place for, what happens when your one Black person goes. Like, you've got the infrastructure there, and actually to think about what are we doing to ensure that pipeline of leadership, but from I guess the bottom up. It's really, really interesting. I did want to go back to a question for our athletes, which and this is one that came up in the chat as well as being submitted beforehand, but how do you balance academic achievement with your sporting kind of life and achievement, especially for all of you? Like, how do you balance those things? I will let maybe Alice, we haven't heard from you for a while, so
the first thing that came to my mind was with great difficulty, but it's actually not that bad, I'm not gonna lie. Like, you do have to have like the best time management in the world, and I think something as an athlete that kind of naturally just comes to you, because you've got X amount of things to manage, and you've got a deadline to think about and everything like that. But it kind of links back. Like, find your support, find like at Loughborough we have athlete mentors, and someone who I could go to and was like, I've sat exams in other countries before because I've been at a competition, and there are people out there to help you with that. And like, hopefully your university has that in place, but if it doesn't, kick up a fuss, make sure somebody's there to help you, because like, doing that like dual career, as it's called, is really impressive and it's really cool, and that's what gets you a job, that's what makes you stand out at the end of the day. And don't let one of those falter because there's no support in place for you. Go find that support and make it work. Like, it is doable. Like, it's not as bad as, I did a master's, so it obviously isn't that bad, but it does take time, commitment, organization and support, and you need all of those, and you can make it work and make it thrive.
What about you, Wari? I know you we talked about this a little bit before, but how have you found it?
So yeah, when we spoke about this, I said I'm not an academic. I very much so was bullied into going to uni, but I love it. I am loving it now. Yeah, for me it took 2 years. So I'm in my 3rd year now. It took 2 years for me to figure out how to do this whole balancing thing. What I found worked for me in particular was being in contact with lecturers, and at Royal Holloway, so I'm a sports scholar, there's how do you call it, like, I guess like a head organizer of what the sports scholars are doing, always being in communication with them, even if it's about, oh, I have a test, like, or a trial, because that can lead you into avenues you didn't even know were possible. Like, from speaking to the organizer, I realized that I could split my 3rd year. So now I'm on a part-time degree, even though it's not offered explicitly by the uni. But yeah, if there is anything that's pressing, speak up. There will be a way to figure it out. And if there's not a way to figure it out, at least you said something. But by all means, don't kill yourself for this life. Like, I very much so just do what has to be done, while my other course mates are going above and beyond, rightfully so. But yeah, it's just how I decide to deal with it.
And Kofi, I know that you've talked a lot about the kind of academic side of that's very important to you anyway, isn't it? So how do you balance that, especially with the rugby life?
Yeah, rugby is always an interesting one because there's obviously a huge social aspect, especially at university surrounded with rugby. I think fortunately for me, I'm not huge in that area, so it's a bit easier. But I'm definitely still learning. I'm only my first year of university, so yeah, definitely still learning on my management of balancing it. But I think definitely like looking for that support. So like, I especially used like office hours for my lectures, like finding them and getting help when I need it. Like catching up on stuff that I've missed is huge.
And I think the kind of that key theme of support, and it connects to what you were saying before, Edmund, is there for all of you, right? And that's something, unfortunately, that whether it's within sport or university or within work, we see that sometimes is kind of withheld a little bit from kind of Black employees, Black colleagues, Black participants. So I think kind of to the powers that be, thinking about how you can proactively support your colleagues of and employees and students of Black heritage is just really important. Like, think, what can we do? And I'm gonna come to Amber, because we've got a question which is definitely I think in your arena, and that's around what more the sector can do to ensure that Black heritage students are empowered to run for leadership positions. But more than empowered, I think, and so I'm going to add to this question, are given the space to develop within those leadership positions, not just be there, but actually be effective.
I think it comes a lot down to like what EY is doing, what Edmund is doing now, which is almost going above and beyond and like almost specifically targeting Black students, Black athletes, everything like that. I think it's quite difficult if you're just trying to promote everything generally, because obviously sometimes it doesn't reach the people that we try and reach, we need to reach.
Yeah.
But I think also just promoting those in power, if that makes sense. If you've got Black leaders in positions of leadership and stuff like that, make sure that they are seen and well supported and well represented and stuff like that, so that other people feel like they can follow in their footsteps. I would say those are my points. Yeah.
What about you? So if we come to say Alice and Vare, what would you like to see in terms of kind of empowering, especially where you're a solo Black voice at the top? What do you think that the kind of the sector can do, sport can do to kind of empower?
Yeah, I think just visibility is always key. I'm so grateful. I've been given so many great opportunities to have these conversations, to meet new people, to find out a lot of people have been in a similar boat to me, like Vare. There's a lot of kindred spirits out there, and for everyone that you meet, there's another one trying to find their voice or trying to understand where their position is somewhere. And so, getting to link with all these people, and just being able to raise the visibility to everybody is really powerful. So I'd say any chance that people get to support, to be an ally, whatever it is, that give us those opportunities, and we'll be super grateful for it. And sometimes you won't want those opportunities. There's a lot of stuff that I've said no to in the past. I'm not going to act like I've said yes to everything. It's hard. Like I said, it's hard. These are tough conversations, but it does mean a lot. It does mean a lot to be able to have my voice amplified and people to care about what I'm saying. So visibility and listen. Yeah.
Vare, what are you thinking?
I think in general, sport could be a lot more open. One thing that stands out to me when I'm thinking, how are we going to move on and make these environments more comfortable for Black individuals, is even like from the lower levels of sport. So I am a high performance athlete, but thinking about the amount of just club rowers and people that do rowing recreationally, they're still majorly white. So it would be great to see involvement at all levels, and that would definitely take a lot of pressure off from my perspective, because at the end of the day, if you're not having fun doing what you're doing, then there's no point. So seeing Black rowers having fun, enjoying the sport, in the same way white people have the leisure and freedom to do, that would mean so much. And sports should just have these open doors for anyone at any level. Like, once again, as Edmund said, Black excellence is so detrimental when young Black people are seeing who's at the top and thinking the only way that I can be in this space is if I'm like them. And I feel like that's how I kind of fell into this position with rowing. Like, I started at sixth form just for fun, and it went 0 to 100 real quick, just because I had that fuel of, you know what, I could be excellent at this. You know, it is fun, but I could be great. I could be the greatest. So yeah, I think the main focus is at every single level, the fun aspect should be promoted. It is a serious topic, like race is a serious topic, but there's not, like, when you wear your skin color, it's very, very draining to have to discuss it every single day and to have to be at like the token Black person, basically. So if we can make it as fun as possible, that would alleviate so much pressure from my perspective.
I think it's a really good point. I think probably all of us on this call have had to be the voice at some point for the community, and so, you know, I think to alleviating that pressure, but also sharing that burden, because it's actually not our issue, you know. That's, you know, it's not us. So, you know, to actually share that responsibility and give the accountability to the people that are responsible for it, I think is quite important. Something I think that we can all kind of all jump in on, and I think this will probably have to be the last question. It kind of connects a little bit to what you were saying there, but, you know, we're talking about ethnicity and race in work. I mean, Edmund's doing it. We're talking about it in sport. We're talking about racism all the time. Where do you think we should take that race conversation now, so that actually what comes next is useful and actually something happens? Because I think we're shared out, right? So, you know, how do we move the conversation forward? What would you like to see? And so we make sure we get Edmund in as well. Feel free to do sport and kind of the world of work, whoever wants to jump in. Last chance to speak, so make it good.
You're probably tired of hearing my voice, but I would like to see action. I think that a lot of learning has been done, especially over the past few years. A lot of Black people have shared their stories, and now it's time to make a change. Like, now it's time to move things around. And I feel like a lot of corporations are banking on the fact of, oh, we've heard, you know, like, oh, we have our diversity portfolios, we know, but what are you doing? That's where I think the next step should be.
Edmund, yeah, I thought you'd have a perspective. Jump in.
I'll definitely echo that. I think it's sitting down with, you know, the bosses who's at the top, and saying, this is what what needs to be done. This is how we review it, and this is how we improve on it as well. I know from myself, I've been sort of having a conversation with a lot of the senior leaders at EY, working on, you know, different initiatives and programs to make sure that we highlight and celebrate, you know, sort of Black talent as well, but also make sure that we create that level playing field. But at the end of the day, like Warren said, we can sit down and talk and have events about Black talent all day, but it's about sort of putting that into a plan, put that into action, getting the investment to, you know, carry out these opportunities as well, because sometimes we speak of these things, but we realize that it requires investment as well, and we need to make sure that we are backed by those who want to make sure that we make a change as well. So I think that's quite important.
And have we got any final thoughts from Amber or Kofi?
I would just echo what they've said. I think definitely, like, if you say after like the the BLM rights and everything like that, I think people understand the issue now. Like, people should understand the issue by now anyway. And I think you're right, like, we are tired of kind of sharing our story all the time and having to point it out in all these situations. So definitely seeing some action from people in the higher ups, people in senior management, acknowledging that this is an issue and kind of fighting to change it would be really, really great. I think if companies currently don't have the statistics on how many people, the protective characteristics of people and stuff like that, how many POC people in their company and everything like that, they should be getting it, and then they should also be pushing to see how they can look to promote to increase the vision of the Black and POC people in their companies and stuff. I think that'd be really good to see. Definitely some action.
Thank you very, very, very much. If Kofi, if you want to jump in, I'll let the floor is yours. Otherwise,
no, I think everything's been said very clearly there. Definite action.
so anyone listening, right? We're happy to talk, and we're sharing is great, but let's do something now. It's really, really important. And even just listening to this conversation, there are tangible things that you can focus on. So I'm really hoping that people have extracted some stuff from here, so that we can, next time we have a conversation like this, we're starting from a point forward from where we are. And that is it. We are done. So I just wanted to say thank you, massive thank you to all of our speakers and panelists today. I mean, I live and work in a diversity space, and I still learn loads. So this is amazing, and I'm really grateful to everyone for sharing and being so honest and open. It was great. Thank you to everybody who's submitted questions as well, and thank you for everyone for coming. Thank you in particular to our keynotes and our event sponsors, EY, our event partners, EY. And I think we will be drawing this event to a close. Will we be welcoming George back?